Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 52, Women Devotees. We rarely looked upon Sri Ramakrishna as a member of the male sex. We always considered him as one of us. Therefore, we did not feel the least constraint before him. He was our best confidant. This was the general opinion of the women devotees of the Master, of whom there were many. All of them revered the Master greatly, and some of them had the good fortune of becoming his disciples. He seemed like a dear relative and engrossed all their thoughts. Whenever any delicacy was prepared, a portion of it was set aside for Sri Ramakrishna and sent to him. They walked great distances to see him, regardless of their position or etiquette. At his bidding, they even went to the market at Dakshineshwar to buy things for him. He made them undergo this discipline in order to wean them gradually from the body idea. He, on his part, was free as a child with them and sought their opinion on various matters. With the instinct of the seer, he called one of them a blessed gopi of Vrindavan because of her devotion, another a cook of Vaikuntha, the sphere of the Lord Vishnu, as a tribute to her skill in the culinary art, and so on. He read their thoughts and understood their feelings as easily as those of men. The religious practices of his earlier years may have helped him in this. And as his mind was absolutely pure, it was but natural that he evoked only the highest sentiments in them. He advised them to renounce lust and wealth and warned them against the snares of men. Among his women devotees, Sri Ramakrishna assigned a high place to the mother of Manomohan Mithra. Indeed, she was a person of rare spiritual gifts, an ideal wife during the lifetime of her husband, looking upon marriage as an inviolable religious sacrament. After his death, she considered herself practically dead to the world. One day, she was seated in Sri Ramakrishna's room with other women when the conversation drifted to the duty of women. The Master said that the whole duty of a woman consisted in faithful service to her husband. The chaste wife should worship him as the embodiment of God. There were not wanting women who, even after the death of their husbands, worshipped them as Sri Krishna, the Lord of all souls. Then he told the following story. A queen, during the lifetime of her husband, wore only a pair of iron bracelets on her wrists, setting aside the desires of her relatives who pressed her to wear gold and jewelry. When the king passed away, the queen broke her iron bracelets and put on all her gold ornaments. Everyone was greatly astonished at this. In response to a friendly query, she said, "When my husband was present as a perishable human figure, I used the inferior iron bracelets. Now that he is one with the Supreme Self, eternal and immutable, I wear these valuable gold ornaments." Pointing to the mother of Manomohan, the Master added, "That is the reason that she wears her gold bracelets. She cherishes the same lofty feelings towards her husband." When her son-in-law, Rakul, became much attracted to Sri Ramakrishna, and everybody talked of his probable renunciation, she said, "It would indeed be an auspicious moment of my life if my son-in-law renounced the world in quest of God and dedicated himself to the service of monks and saints." Her regard for the Master was unbounded, and she thought nothing of dispensing with the time-honored formalities of religion if she knew that Sri Ramakrishna wished it. Another great woman devotee was known later as Joganma. She was a rich man's wife, but owing to family troubles, was most unhappy. One day, she heard from Balaram, who was a relative of Sri Ramakrishna, and took the first opportunity to go to Dakshineshwar. At the sight of the Master, she forgot all her sorrows and afflictions. He was glad to meet her and introduced her to the Holy Mother. From the very first, Joganma surrendered herself completely at the feet of the Master. She came frequently to Dakshineshwar and sometimes spent several days at a time with the Holy Mother. She was initiated by the Master and spent the greater part of the day in various religious practices. Referring to her, the Master once remarked, "She is a devotee of rare spiritual attainments. In the fullness of time, people will wonder at her many realizations." This prophecy came true, for after a short practice, Joganma would fall into trances while meditating on God. Later on, she became a constant companion of the Holy Mother. Another woman devotee was a middle-aged widow, afterwards known as Golap Ma. She was in great grief at the death of her only daughter. Hearing of Sri Ramakrishna from Jogan Ma, she set out for Dakshineshwar and unfolded her sad tale to the master. He became semi-conscious and, in that state, said, "You are fortunate. God himself helps those who have none else in the world to call their own." The words breathed new life into her. Sri Ramakrishna accepted her as his own, and she soon tasted of the bliss of devotions. He also went with his devotees to her house. Golap Ma was so happy at this that she could scarcely contain her joy. The following incident, though it happened a little later, during the early stage of the master's last illness, we shall give here. One day, Golap Ma told the master that she knew of an expert physician who might treat his case successfully. Sri Ramakrishna, like a boy, jumped at the idea and proposed to see the doctor the next morning. He set out for Calcutta from Dakshineshwar by boat, accompanied by Golap Ma, Latu, and Kali. Reaching Calcutta, they consulted the doctor, who prescribed certain medicines. On their way back to Dakshineshwar, they felt very hungry. The master inquired if any of the devotees had any money. None, but Golap Ma had any, and that was but 4 paise. The master asked Kali to take it and buy something at the nearest market. Kali purchased an anna worth of sweets from Baranagore. The master, much to the surprise of the others, ate them all. He then drank water from the Ganges and said, "Ah, I am satisfied." As the master declared his satisfaction, the hunger of the 3, who were mutely watching, vanished. They felt quite satisfied. They did not know how nor why. A great yogi that he was, Sri Ramakrishna made use of his superior knowledge to feed 4 hungry mouths in feeding his own. We read that ages ago. Sri Krishna did the same thing, but on a larger scale. Nature unfolds its secrets to the one who has access to them. Time or place makes no difference. It may be a platitude, but it seems worth repeating that given similar conditions, incidents repeat themselves. The mother of Devendranath Mazumdar looked upon Sri Ramakrishna as her own child. One day, she came to Dakshineshwar with her son and some others, and unknown to Devendra, brought some puffed sugar pellets as an offering to the deities of Rasmani's temple. They reached the garden at noon and found the master seated on his smaller bedstead. All prostrated themselves before him, except the aged lady, who, regarding him as her son, did not bow. Sri Ramakrishna addressed her as mother and made her sit beside him on the bed. They talked with each other like mother and child, and the lady was so much overwhelmed with joy that she totally forgot about the little bundle of sweets. Curiously enough, Sri Ramakrishna, after a while, expressed a desire for that particular kind of sweetmeat. Devendra sent one of his companions to the market to purchase it. But the master gradually became impatient, and like a child began to pull at the lady's cloth. Presently, the bundle of sweetmeats was disclosed to view, much to the master's joy. He ate them with gusto, and Devendra's mother could not check her tears as she looked on. An aged relative of Jadunath Malik was greatly devoted to Sri Ramakrishna and often invited him to Jadu's garden house, near the Kali temple. One day, she arranged her various offerings in her own room and sat in meditation. Sri Ramakrishna fell into a trance while speaking with some of his devotees. In that state, he left the Kali temple and entered the room where the old lady was meditating. She opened her eyes and found the master eating the offerings meant for her chosen ideal. Tears flowed from her eyes at this unexpected token of divine grace, and in a voice choked with emotion, she said, "Ah, today the aspirations of my mind have been fulfilled. I have realized your true nature. Bless me that I may realize God in this very birth." Sri Ramakrishna touched her head with his foot, and she experienced the rare bliss of divine communion. The daughter of the Brahmo, devotee Manilal Malik, was very pious and cherished a high regard for the master. She was greatly distracted during meditation. One day, she told the master about it and asked his advice. He asked her whom she loved most in the world. She replied that it was her brother's child. The master told her to meditate on the boy, thinking of him as the baby Krishna. The lady followed this novel instruction, and as a result of the concentration that ensued, was blessed in a short time with various divine visions. Gauri Dasi, or Gaur Ma as she is more popularly known in the circle of Sri Ramakrishna's devotees, was a remarkable lady of great devotion and renunciation. She early embraced the life of a nun and practiced the Vaishnava form of worship at Vrindavan. Learning of Sri Ramakrishna from Balaram Bose, she came to Calcutta and went to Dakshineshwar. At the very first meeting, she believed the master to be an incarnation of Sri Gauranga and became intensely devoted to him. She would often stay at Dakshineshwar with the Holy Mother and sometimes cook for the master. One day, a desire came to her to experience for herself the flood of divine emotion that had been so often manifested in Sri Gauranga. Though she told no one of it, the desire was strangely fulfilled in the following way. One morning, a number of devotees arrived at Dakshineshwar. Gaur Ma cooked the meal for the master that day and came to his room with a dish of food in her hand. Kedarnath Chatterjee was there, and Sri Ramakrishna introduced him to Gaur Ma. Both were of the same faith, and as they looked at each other, they felt a tremendous rush of feeling. They stood gazing at each other, and large teardrops rolled down their cheeks. At the sight of this emotion, the master, who had scarcely tasted the food, stood up. All the devotees present in the room closed in. A divine thrill pervaded the whole atmosphere, and the devotees, caught in it, forgot themselves and the world. Some began to laugh, some wept, and others sang or danced in the exuberance of joy. Some began to shake, and others rolled on the ground unconscious. In the twinkling of an eye, all this came about. Nobody was prepared for it. This divine intoxication continued for some time, after which Sri Ramakrishna touched and restored all to the normal state. But undoubtedly the most marvelous of Sri Ramakrishna's relationship was with an orthodox Brahmin woman named Agramani Devi, later on known as Gopala's mother. Widowed when quite a girl, she formed a friendship with the widow of Govinda Chandra Dutt of Padaldanga, Calcutta, who had built a temple to Radha Govinda at Kamrahati, some 3 miles north of Dakshineshwar. Agramani made this temple her home and occupied a small room just on the bank of the Ganges. Both she and the lady caretaker of the temple led a life of extreme restraint and devotion. Agramani was a woman of independent spirit, living on the interest of small sum she possessed. She was born with Vaishnava instincts, and in course of time was initiated by a Vaishnava guru. Gopala, or baby Krishna, was her favorite deity, whom she looked upon as her own child. Her little cell was singularly devoid of all comforts. She had an old copy of the Ramayana in her little bag with the rosary. Hour after hour, day after day, for 30 years had she sat absorbed in telling her beads there. When one afternoon, in the year 1884, Agramani with 2 companions went to see Sri Ramakrishna, she was about 60 years of age. The master received them kindly, spoke on devotion, and sang a few songs. He also asked them to come again. Agramani was much attracted to Sri Ramakrishna. He is a nice man, a real devotee, and I must try to come again, she thought as she returned to Kamrati. The master praised her and one of her companions, the widow of Govinda Babu, saying that everything about them bespoke their genuine but unostentatious devotion. Shortly after, she went to Dakshineshwar again, with 2 or 3 paisa worth of the most ordinary sweets. "Oh, you have come," said Sri Ramakrishna as soon as he saw her. "Give me what you have brought for me." With great hesitation, Agramani produced the sweets, which the master ate with relish. "Why do you spend your money in purchasing these things from the market? Prepare some sweetened coconut balls at home, and bring 1 or 2 of them when you come here. Or you may bring a little of the common dishes which you cook for yourself. I wish very much to eat things cooked by you." Agramani used to say later on, instead of speaking about God or religion, he spoke about this food or that food. I thought, what a queer monk. He only talks of food, and I am a poor widow. How can I feed him every day? Well, I must not come to him anymore. But as soon as I crossed the boundary of the garden, I again felt an irresistible attraction towards him. With great difficulty could I persuade myself to return to Kamrati. A few days later, she again came to Dakshineshwar on foot with some curry of her own making. Sri Ramakrishna ate it with great pleasure and extolled her skill in cooking. During the next 3 or 4 months, she went to Dakshineshwar every now and then. She would share with the master any special dish which she cooked. He would eat with great relish and ask for more. Sometimes the widow would think in disgust, "Oh Gopala, is this the result of my constant prayers? You have brought me to a monk who always hankers for food? I shall never come here again." But she could not resist his attraction, which made itself felt as soon as she left. Sri Ramakrishna went once to Kamrati, praised the regular service of the deities there, and during a kirtan fell into frequent trances. One morning at 3 o'clock in the spring of 1885, Agramani, according to her usual routine, sat to tell her beads. After the japa, she was about to surrender the fruits of it to her chosen ideal, when she was startled to find that Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on her left with his right fist clenched. She thought in wonder, what is this? What on earth could bring him here at this hour? We shall tell of her experience in her own words. While I looked at him wondering how he came there, he kept on smiling. Picking up courage, I caught hold of his left hand. Suddenly the figure vanished, and in place of it appeared the real Gopala of this size, indicating it, who crawled towards me and raising one arm, with his eyes fixed on me. Oh, the beauty of it! Lisped, "Mama, give me butter." I was so surprised. I cried aloud with joy. It was a lonely place, or a crowd would have gathered. I said, weeping, "Alas, I am a poor and helpless widow. Where shall I get cream and butter for you, my child?" But Gopala would not listen to me. "Give me something to eat," he said again and again. Weeping, I got up and brought him some dry coconut candies. "Gopala, my darling," I said, "I offer you this wretched thing, but don't give me such a poor thing in return." I could not perform japa that day. Gopala sat on my lap, snatched my rosary away, jumped on my shoulders, and moved about in the room. As soon as the day broke, I hastened like an insane woman to Dakshineshwar. Gopala accompanied me, resting his head on my shoulder. Pressing him against my breast, I walked all the way. His tiny ruddy feet I clearly saw hanging over my chest. Galama was present on the occasion. We describe what followed in her words. It was 7 or 7:30 in the morning. I was sweeping the master's room when I heard somebody advancing towards it crying, "Gopala! Gopala!" The voice, which seemed familiar, came nearer and nearer. At last, I found it was Agramani, almost mad, with disheveled hair, staring eyes, and the end of her cloth trailing on the ground. Dead to all considerations of the body or the outside world, she entered the room through the eastern door. Sri Ramakrishna was then seated on his smaller bedstead. I was speechless with wonder to see her in that state. The master, in the meantime, had fallen into a trance. Agramani drew near and sat beside him. He, like a child, sat on her lap. Tears were flowing profusely from her eyes. She had brought cream, butter, and other delicacies with her, with which she was feeding the master. I was extremely surprised, for never before had I seen the master touching a woman in a state of trance. I only heard that long ago he used to sit on the lap of his teacher, the Biography Brahmani, as her child, when she was inspired with the sentiments of Yasoda, the mother of Krishna. After some time, the master was restored to normal consciousness and returned to his bedstead. But the floodgate of emotion had been opened in the heart of Agramani, and she was still on another plane of consciousness. In rapturous ecstasy, she danced about the room. Noticing this, the master said to me with a smile, "Look at her. She is steeped in bliss. Her mind has fled to the region of Gopal." Flooded with emotion, Agramani began to talk with Sri Ramakrishna in words which were scarcely intelligible to the outsider. "Here is Gopala in my arms. Now he enters into you. There he has emerged again. Come, my darling, to your afflicted mother." Thus did she describe the movements of the nimble Gopala. How could she remain steady in such paroxysms of joy? From that day forth, Agramani came to be called Gopala's mother. Sri Ramakrishna warmly congratulated her on this unique realization. To quiet her, he began to tap her chest and shared with her whatever dainties he had. Even while partaking of them, she, still in a state of ecstasy, said, "Gopala, my dear, you mother has led a most unhappy life on earth." She had to earn her livelihood by spinning. Is that why you are so loving today? After keeping her the whole day at Dakshineshwar and making her bathe and eat, the master sent her back to Kamruhti in the evening. The baby Krishna of her vision also went with her, nestled in her arms. Reaching her cell, she sat to tell beads as before, but it was impossible. The beloved object of her meditation and prayer, in whose search she had spent her whole life, was gamboling before her. She went to bed with Gopala by her side. She had a hard bed without a pillow, but Gopala began to fret for a pillow. So she placed his tiny head upon her arm, and drawing him close to her tried to console him, saying, "Pass this night thus, my child, and tomorrow morning I will get you a soft pillow." The next day, Gopala's mother set about collecting some dry wood in order to cook for her Gopala. The child accompanied her and helped her in her work, then began the cooking, and the naughty child began to play tricks on her. The adoring mother sometimes fondled him, and sometimes administered a rebuke. A few days after, Gopala's mother came to Dakshineshwar, and after seeing Sri Ramakrishna, went to the Holy Mother in the concert room. She told her beads, as usual, and on the completion of it was saluting her deity when a master came. He said to her, "Why do you tell your beads so much now? Haven't you got enough realization already?" The lady, "Shall I stop it then? Have I finished everything?" Sri Ramakrishna, "Yes, you have." The lady, "Everything?" Sri Ramakrishna, "Yes, everything." The lady, "Indeed. Do you really mean that I have finished everything?" Sri Ramakrishna, "Yes, you have finished all your spiritual exercises, so far as you yourself are concerned. But you may, if you like, pray for the welfare of this body," meaning himself. Referring to this incident, the venerable lady afterwards said, "Hearing this from his lips, I threw my rosary and the little bag into the Ganges." For Gopala's sake, she used to address the master with this epithet, "I repeated the name of God on my fingers only." Long after, I procured another rosary. I had to spend the day somehow, and this was the best way to keep myself engaged. And so, I tell my beads even now. So after years of steady practice, Gopala's mother attained her goal. Her visit to Dakshineshwar became more frequent. Her hitherto extreme scrupulousness in matters of food and cleanliness gradually lessened. Orthodox methods became impossible to her. Gopala now became her visible teacher. The divine baby wished to eat every now and then. Sometimes he put a part of the food in her mouth. How could she refuse it? Gopala wept if she did so. She was convinced, besides, that this was all Ramakrishna's doing, and that he was really her Gopala, and she felt no hesitation in accepting the food touched by him. Agramani spent a couple of months in this uninterrupted communion with God. During all this time, Gopala did not leave her for a moment. It is only the very fortunate few who can live at such dizzy spiritual heights for so long. Sri Ramakrishna once said to her, "You have achieved the impossible. Such a realization as yours is rare in this age." Perhaps it was the will of God that she should be spared a few years more in the world to serve as a glorious example of the intimate relationship which is possible to establish with God. After 2 months, the vision became interrupted and less vivid, but she could always see him during meditation. Every year, Balaram Bose used to celebrate the Car Festival in his house at Bog Bazaar, and with some of his devotees, the master was invited on that occasion. The following incident took place in the year 1885 during one of those festivals. The master arrived in the morning with some devotees. Some women devotees came there to take advantage of this opportunity of seeing the master. At a suggestion from Sri Ramakrishna, Balaram sent a man to bring Gopala's mother from Kamruhti. In the afternoon, the master sat in the parlor conversing with the devotees. Darkness was falling, when suddenly the master fell into a trance, assuming the posture of baby Krishna as shown in the picture. His 2 knees and one hand rested on the ground. The other hand was raised, and the face was turned up as if he were expecting someone. Nobody understood the reason for this sudden change. A few minutes after, the carriage of Gopala's mother drew up before the house, and the fortunate lady found Sri Ramakrishna in the posture of her chosen ideal. Those assembled realized that it was her devotion that had influenced the master. "I don't like this stiff posture," said Gopala's mother. "My Gopala should laugh and play and walk and run. But what is this? He has become stiff as a log. I don't like to see this sort of Gopala." Sri Ramakrishna stayed at Balaram's house for 2 days. On the third morning, he set out for Dakshineshwar. Gopala's mother and Golap Ma accompanied him. The ladies of Balaram's family presented Agramani with a few pieces of cloth and some utensils, which were put into the boat. When the boat had gone a little distance, the master's eyes fell on the bundle, and he asked what was in it. When he learned of its contents, he gravely remarked to Golap Ma, "He alone realizes God who renounces everything for his sake. The devotee who is simply satisfied with another man's hospitality and returns without having his hands filled with additional presents sits very close to God." He did not exchange a single word with Gopala's mother, but kept looking at her bundle. She was stung with remorse and thought of throwing it away. Sri Ramakrishna was usually very kind, but he could be implacable when necessary. The method of punishment was usually very simple, a little indifference, or at the most, a mild remonstrance. His superhuman love did the rest. Reaching Dakshineshwar, Gopala's mother went to the Holy Mother and said anxiously, "Gopala is angry with me over this bundle of things. What shall I do? I shall distribute them here instead of taking them home." The Holy Mother consoled the old lady and said, "Don't worry, mother. Let him say what he will. There is none in the world to help you. It is because you require these things that you have accepted them." Nevertheless, Gopala's mother gave away some of the things. Then she cooked some curries for the master and went to feed him, but not without some apprehension. Sri Ramakrishna, seeing her penitence, never referred again to the matter, much to her relief. She returned cheerfully to Kamruhdi in the evening. After the realization, the old lady's scruples about caste and other considerations in regard to certain of Sri Ramakrishna's devotees also gradually lessened. Ever since her conviction of the identity of Sri Ramakrishna and Gopala, she used to see him more often than Gopala at the time of meditation. Through him, Gopala would instruct her. At first, she was anxious at not seeing the Gopala form, and one day actually said to Sri Ramakrishna, "Gopala, why have you punished me like this? What offense have I committed that I no longer see you in the baby form?" The master consoled her and said, "It is impossible for the physical body to survive long in this Kali Yuga if the mind be constantly attuned to the highest plane of consciousness." It was indeed a fact that for the 2 months immediately following her realization, she lived in quite another world, was almost oblivious of the body, and went through her daily routine automatically by the sheer force of habit. The master's love and esteem for this saintly woman cannot be described. At that time, many Marwaris used to visit him and present him with sugar candy and fruits, which he seldom ate himself or gave to his devotees. He used to say that behind these offerings there were always some gross, selfish motives, which were sure to contaminate the minds of those who partook of them. But he made 2 exceptions. One of these was Narendra, whose burning illumination was proof against all impurity, and the other, Gopala's mother, who was raised above all earthly taint. One day, she came to see the master with some other women devotees. When he saw her, he began to caress her like a child. Pointing to her, he said to those present, "Ah, there is nothing inside this body except God. He fills it through and through." Gopala's mother stood silent. She even allowed the master to touch her feet. Then he began to feed her, whereupon she said, "Why are you so fond of feeding me?" "Sri Ramakrishna, you also fed me with many things in the past." The lady, "In the past? When?" "Sri Ramakrishna, in your previous births." As she was leaving for Kamruhdi in the evening, the master asked her to accept a large quantity of sugar candy, the gift of the Marwaris. She said, "Why do you give me so much sugar candy?" The master touched her chin with great tenderness and said, "Well, you were molasses before, then you became sugar, and now you are sugar candy. Therefore, eat sugar candy and rejoice. One day, Gopala's mother and Narendranath were present at Dakshineshwar. Nothing could present a more striking contrast than those two. Sri Ramakrishna, with his unsurpassed sense of humor, could not resist the temptation of setting these two devotees to compare notes. He asked Gopala's mother to recount her experiences before Narendranath. "But will there not be harm in telling them?" she asked, for the master had once warned her not to divulge them, even to himself. Encouraged by the master, she narrated, amid tears, all those thrilling incidents of her life, which seemed miraculous. Now, beneath his rationalistic veneer, Narendranath possessed an inexhaustible fund of devotion and religious fervor, and as he heard the recital, he could not check his tears. The old lady now and then would interrupt her story to say, "My son, you are learned and intelligent, and I am a poor, illiterate widow. I don't understand anything. Tell me if you consider my visions of Gopala to be real." Every time, Narendra answered that they were all true to the very letter. I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.